So Wolf Blitzer has William Barr on. And he asked him about this narrative, basically. And the whole interview is Wolf Blitzer delivering the narrative and William Barr answering with the facts. This is cut 7.
There appears to be a phenomenon in the country where African Americans feel that they're treated, when they're stopped by police frequently, as suspects before they're treated as citizens. I don't think that necessarily reflects some deep-seated racism in police departments or in most police officers. I think the same kind of behavior is done by African American police officers. I think there are stereotypes. I think people operate very frequently according to stereotypes, and I think it takes extra precaution on the part of law enforcement to make sure we don't reduce people to stereotypes. We treat them as individuals.
But of course, because crime in poor black communities is so high, and because the black participation in crime is so high, there is this experience that black police, and everybody has. Barr mentions this, as Jesse Jackson says, he feels more of a threat when a black person comes up behind him. But the thing is, if those statistics were true of Irish people or Italian people or anyone else, we would treat them the same way. So it would actually be treating black people differently to say, oh yeah, we're just going to ignore those statistics. So there is that. But of course, there's also the idea, look, I know if I'm on a dark street and a black guy comes up behind me, I know I'm not making a judgment on that individual. I'm playing the odds and trying to keep myself safe. But the whole thing about these shootings, that your life is in danger as a black person from police shootings if you don't happen to be wielding a knife and trying to steal a car after attacking a woman you're not supposed to be anywhere near, the whole narrative is false. This is cut 8.
I think the narrative that that the police are on some epidemic of shooting unarmed black men is simply a false narrative, and also the narrative that that's based on race. The fact of the matter is, it's very rare for an unarmed African American to be shot by a white police officer. There were 10 cases last year. 6 of them, the suspect was attacking the police officer physically. So these are rare things compared to the 7,000 to 8,000 young black men who are killed every year.
10 people who were unarmed, but many of them attacking the police, and others, you just don't know what the situation was, except that if you're on CNN, then you just make the judgment without finding out the facts, but you don't know. So 10 people, country of 330 million people, 13% of those are black. That's almost a non-existent number. Now, I realize that if any innocent person gets shot, and especially if they get shot by the police, I know that's a tragedy. I'm not belittling that. But I'm saying when you concentrate on that, when children are being shot routinely in Chicago, and nobody says their name, those little kids who get shot when a drive-by shooting happens, why isn't that the problem? That's an actual problem. That's an actual threat to people in poor communities. Again and again, Wolf Blitzer brings the narrative, Barr answers with the facts. And at one point, there was one moment that was an absolute kind of a shock. As I was talking about the fact that the left never confronts the other side in any meaningful way. It's not confronting the other side to shout them down or call them names or say they're racist or just use their name as an insult. Limbaugh, oh man, it's Limbaugh, you're not going to listen to that. It's Limbaugh. Never mind the facts, never mind. Or the other thing that they do where they say, that's a white person talking. Are you going to tell me about it? Again and again this happens. And here is an incredible conflict of Wolf Blitzer's narrative coming up with just the facts. This is cut 6, where he asks him about the shooting of Jacob Blake and the shooting of George Floyd and the killing of George Floyd.
How do you think African-American parents around the country explain to their kids what exactly happened to Jacob Blake, for example, and why that police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the Blake case.
Why not?
Because I think it's different than the Floyd case.
What's different?
Well, Floyd was already subdued, incapacitated, in handcuffs, and was not armed. In the Jacob case, he was in the midst of committing a felony, and he was armed. So that's a big difference.
That's kind of a difference, kind of a big difference, Wolf. It's like, check your press card. What does it say on it? Oh, I'm press. I'm supposed to know there's a difference between an armed man resisting arrest, getting shot, and a guy who's already subdued and the cop treats him badly. Those are two different things. And then Wolf Blitzer answers at one point by quoting Jacob Blake's father, who it now turns out is this anti-Semitic loon who's like, putting forward all these crazy theories about black people and Jews. I mean, the guy is really a very weird guy. Why should he be quoted about anything? So this is one of my favorite clips. I got to play this. This is Lovebirds, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski watching Bill Barr. This is their commentary, cut 10.
That's a bad guy.
Claire McCaskill,
That's a bad guy.
He is an extraordinarily, an extraordinarily bad public servant.
Just the worst.
And you really, Claire, I think.
Just the worst.
I think Donald Trump and Bill Barr, in those two clips yesterday, they have saved us from having to explain the depths to which they plunged during the Trump era. All we have to do is play our grandchildren those two clips, and they'll look at us and they'll say, Granddad, that must have been really bad.
Facts. I hate those facts. I don't need no stinking facts. I got a narrative. I don't need no stinking facts. It really is remarkable, the blindness that they go on and say these things. And also I got to give it to Joe and Mika that they're a comedy team. They're doing opinion pieces, really. But this is what the New York Times is like every day. Every page, every article is just filled with this kind of hatefulness and this kind of dismissiveness, and making certain that the readers of the New York Times never have to say, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the bad guy. One more thing I want to play. One last thing is this narrative that's now becoming a big deal. They call it the Red Mirage. A top Democratic data and analytics firm has put it out that on election night, it is true that Donald Trump may win by a landslide, but once those mail-in votes come in, that landslide will disappear. And therefore we shouldn't concede. Nobody should take the election seriously. This is really dangerous. I mean, don't they love their country at all? Barr answered this with Wolf Blitzer, this whole thing about the mail-in votes and whether it's wrong to think that they could be suspect. This is cut 19.
This is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then, there have been
until
a lot
this
of investigations that haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in.
So, I mean, don't they love this country at all? I guess they don't. They say they don't. It's not like me accusing them of being unpatriotic. They say there's racism in our DNA, is founded on the blood of slaves, is founded on racist principles. They say this all the time, but all they do is say Trump may not accept the results of the election. And then they're telling you not to accept the results of the election. They're demanding that you not accept the results of the election. Don't they see these cities burning? Don't they see these cities burning, these businesses being destroyed, these lives being destroyed, the violence in the streets of our cities? What do they think it's going to be like on election night if they tell people that this election is false? If Donald Trump wins by a landslide, God willing, and they tell him not to accept that? It really is dangerous. And you just think, if you had to sit with somebody and confront them and argue with them and sit next to them in church and not have the priest tell you that they were damned, if you had to love them, if you had to talk to them, if you had to accept them, as we on the right have to see the left. We have no choice, right? Because we watch TV, because we see the news, because we go to the movies, because we watch, television shows and we read books. We have to see the left. They don't have to. They can live in this bubble, and it is making them hateful, and it's making them violent, and it's the reason we're in the difficulties we're in. It's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump does things that are wrong. I say it all the time, but it's not his fault. He's not the one who divided this country. The country was divided when this wall of misinformation was put up between the left and the right. And that wall of misinformation, that empire of lies, is the Academy, the news media, and Hollywood, and they're still at it.